Live NFL trivia every Wednesday night on Twitch at 9 p.m. Eastern. Come show off your football knowledge for a chance to win cash prizes. Check the link in the description to find out more. And now, on with our feature presentation. Some of the craziest moments that changed the history of the Super Bowl and how the biggest championship in American sports is played and shown happened from the least suspected and unlikeliest of sources. The halftime show became what it was today because of a random comedy sketch show airing on a rival network. The pregame show became what it was today because of a golf tournament getting rained out, and CBS having no contingency plan whatsoever. You can learn more about that weird situation by clicking the card in the upper right corner. It's crazy how sometimes the changes that made the Super Bowl what it is today have nothing to do with football whatsoever. And here's one of those crazy stories that you might not know about that completely changed the way the game was played. Today, the Super Bowl rotates on a year-to-year basis. You never see the Super Bowl in the same place in back-to-back years. And if a stadium hosts a Super Bowl twice in a decade-long stretch, it's considered a lot. But the reason why it happened? Amazingly enough, it had to do with the trumpet. One trumpet player completely changed how the Super Bowl was played and how the Super Bowl was rotated forever. And this is the crazy story behind Super Bowl IV and the trumpet player that changed football. Before I talk about the crazy incident in question, we need some context to understand the issue at hand, as well as the two parties competing, and why this was such a big deal to begin with. And to fully tell this story, we have to go back to January 15, 1967, when the very first Super Bowl was played at the Los Angeles Memorial Coliseum between the Green Bay Packers and the Kansas City Chiefs. The first ever AFL-NFL World Championship game was won by the Packers convincingly, as they took it 35-10. However, from an attendance standpoint, the game was an absolute failure. You can see the video and see just how many empty seats were in the Coliseum. The stadium was not even 2/3 of the way full, as only 61,946 people showed up to watch this historic game. It seems almost unthinkable now, because every Super Bowl since then has been sold out, with the exception of Super Bowl 55 for pandemic-related reasons. However, back in 1967, the Super Bowl was not an attendance draw in LA. In fact, the Playoff Bowl down in Miami, which was a third-place game that the NFL used to hold throughout the 60s, drew only 3,000 fewer fans than the Super Bowl. Again, that seems unthinkable. However, everything changed when Super Bowl II was given to the city of Miami. Once again, the Packers won the game, prevailing over the Oakland Raiders. But this time, the game was a massive success from an attendance standpoint. Over 75,546 fans packed into the Orange Bowl to watch this World Championship game, and to see which of the two competing leagues had the superior champion team. What Super Bowl II proved to the NFL was that, when done right, this championship game between the two leagues could be a massive draw, and could sell out. And the same thing happened at Super Bowl III. Excluding the Miracle on Ice, in arguably the biggest upset in the history of American team sports, the New York Jets stunned the Baltimore Colts to give the AFL its first victory over the NFL. Some consider this game to be the most important game in the history of pro football for helping legitimize the AFL and for helping keep the merger agreement intact. If you want to learn more about that game, click the card in the upper right corner. And once again, just like Super Bowl II, the third installment of the Super Bowl was a success. The first go-around was not a fluke, as once again, people packed into the Orange Bowl to watch this miracle unfold. The announced attendance at the game was 75,389, which was a sellout and was almost identical to the number in Super Bowl II. And the game seemed to go off without a hitch, minus the fact that the opening of the gates to the stadium was delayed by 30 minutes because of a bomb threat that fortunately went absolutely nowhere. But by this point, it seemed like all paths led to Miami. The Super Bowl was synonymous with Miami, and Miami was synonymous as the host city of football's biggest game. And it seemed like it was going to be that way forever. And then came a challenger. You have to remember the context of the times back in the late 60s. Today, assuming there's no pandemic, the idea that the Super Bowl would ever be in danger of not selling out, and the idea that there would be a sea of empty seats in the stadium is unthinkable. People would give an arm and a leg, literally, to watch the game. You could put the Super Bowl in the middle of nowhere in Alaska, and it would still sell out. That's how much of a cultural phenomenon the game is today. But this was 1969 that we're talking about. The game was not the spectacle that it is today. The game was just starting out, and the NFL had no idea that they were holding a golden goose in their possession. They had no idea what the Super Bowl would become, and they had perfectly legitimate and valid fears that Miami might be the only city that can successfully host this game. The old saying is that you don't mess with a winning formula, and that if it ain't broke, you don't fix it. Well, Super Bowl I in Los Angeles did not sell out. Super Bowls II and III in Miami did. Before the Super Bowl came to Miami, the Playoff Bowl was routinely bringing in over 50,000 spectators, and this was, for all intents and purposes, a meaningless exhibition game. And Miami was the only pro football city at the time that had absolutely perfect weather for early January, and had the ideal conditions for such a championship game. At Super Bowl II, the temperature at kickoff was 60 degrees, and that was on the lower end, because the average temperature in January of 1968 was just a hair below 68 degrees. Miami had history on its side. They had the infrastructure necessary, they had the weather, and they had what the NFL was looking for. They didn't have to worry about the success of the game in Miami. They knew it was going to sell out and run smoothly. But then came a challenger. The city of New Orleans wanted to throw their hat into the ring and host Super Bowl IV. Now they tried to submit a bid for Super Bowl III, but once again, seeing the success of the Miami Super Bowl, the NFL awarded the game to South Florida. That decision left New Orleans Mayor Victor Shiro stunned, as he thought it was a guarantee that New Orleans would get the Super Bowl, especially since Tulane Stadium held more than 10,000 seats in the Orange Bowl, and he thought that at least 80,000 tickets would be sold, making the game a sellout. And this vote wasn't even close. It was a unanimous vote, with everyone agreeing that the game should return to South Florida. But New Orleans was not deterred. They went all out trying to acquire the rights to host Super Bowl IV, knowing that if they lost this bid to Miami and if it didn't go well, that there was a very good chance that this would be Miami's game forever. And in their presentation, the city came out swinging. When I say that these talks were absolutely heated, I mean it. There was tons of bickering going on between officials from New Orleans and officials from Miami during these meetings in March of 1969, as New Orleans was pulling out all the stops to try and get the game to their city, especially since the last time they tried to get a big game with the 1965 AFL All-Star Game, let's just say it did not end well for anyone. When Miami Mayor Steve Clark spoke to try and convince league officials to bring the Super Bowl back to Miami for the third straight year, one New Orleans official interrupted. He said, "I have a letter from Governor Kirk saying that Miami is a great supporter of professional football. What was the Dolphins' attendance in 1966, 1967, and 1968? Clark conceded that the attendance was not good, and that it did not compare to the attendance of the Saints. However, Clark rebutted by saying that Miami has a great diversity of sports, and they all receive support. When Clark used attendance figures and numbers from the University of Miami football team, the New Orleans official responded, but the governor's letter said pro football. By this point, Clark was agitated, and said, "We're not talking about the Dolphins, we're talking about the Super Bowl." And that was true. It didn't matter how poor Miami's attendance was, since the Super Bowl had sold out the past 2 years, so this should be pretty irrelevant. But New Orleans was still trying to press the issue, and an official asked about the poor attendance at the playoff bowl, to which Clark was furious, saying that even though it wasn't that good, the Super Bowl attendance was great, and the Orange Bowl attendance was great the week before that too. New Orleans was being incredibly aggressive in their attempt to bring the game to their city, stopping at nothing to interrupt Miami's presentation and discredit the city. However, it was going to be a tough sell. Again, the vote last year was unanimous in favor of Miami. Officials had a winning formula on their hands by going back to South Florida, and even Commissioner Pete Rozelle conceded that we couldn't improve on what we had in Miami. When the commissioner of the NFL is flat out saying that Miami is a perfect host and that nothing could be improved upon, it makes little sense to go elsewhere. With the owners still leaning toward Miami for the third straight year, New Orleans knew that they needed something big and needed an ace up their sleeve to have any chance at winning this bid. And their Hail Mary attempt? A trumpet. The man you're watching right now is trumpeter Hirt. He is one of the most famous and most accomplished trumpet players of all time, and that is not an exaggeration. He was the mastermind behind the theme song to The Green Hornet, which was one of the most famous instrumental theme songs ever written. He made numerous appearances on television, back when that was a big deal, and frequently appeared on The Ed Sullivan Show, which was the most popular show in the country during the first half of the 1960s. He even had a few hits on the Billboard Hot 100, which is somewhat odd for an instrumentalist, but that's just how mainstream and how successful he was. And he had a history with the NFL, as he performed alongside the marching bands for Arizona and Grambling State at the very first Super Bowl halftime show in Los Angeles. And the New Orleans Big Committee had an idea. While the league officials were having dinner at the Rackets Club, as they were about to eat before finishing up some final items of business and then retiring for the night, they were going to have Hirt come out there and do a surprise performance. Hirt was a huge part of New Orleans. He routinely performed at Mardi Gras, he was born in New Orleans back in 1922, he's a member of the Louisiana Music Hall of Fame, and at one point was a minority owner of the New Orleans Saints. Would this move help New Orleans' bid? Well, that was the gamble that the organizing committee was taking. They were hoping that a trumpet player, of all people, could push the city's bid over the edge and help them get the rights to host Super Bowl IV. Unfortunately, there was no footage of the performance, which is not too surprising, seeing as this was a private dinner back in 1969. However, to say that the performance went well would be a massive understatement. Not only did Hirt receive a round of applause after he performed, but he got a full-on standing ovation. The owners absolutely loved the surprise, and loved the performance. It was a calculated gamble, but having the owners get treated to a surprise performance by one of the biggest names in music and one of the greatest trumpeters of all time, worked out in a big way. Because after that dinner, on the heels of that performance, the tide turned, and New Orleans became the favorite. And 1 year after losing in a unanimous vote to the city of Miami, despite the fact that Miami, by Rozelle's own admission, had been a perfect host, New Orleans was named the host of Super Bowl IV. And the rest is history. Super Bowl IV was a massive success from an attendance standpoint, as the Kansas City Chiefs beat the Minnesota Vikings 23-7 in the final game before the merger between the AFL and NFL officially took place. Over 80,562 fans packed into Tulane Stadium to watch the action unfold. This was an attendance record for the game at the time, and when Mayor Victor Shiro promised that the city could draw at least 80,000 fans, he was not kidding, as he and the city lived up to their word. And the success of the game taught the NFL that maybe, just maybe, Miami wasn't the only city that could pull this one off. Maybe other cities could capably host the Super Bowl. And from that moment on, the game is rotated all across the country. Once the NFL realized that not just Miami could sell out the game and put on a good show, other cities were given the game. Today, the 55 Super Bowls played have been hosted by 15 different metropolitan areas, and that does not include Las Vegas, which will become the 16th different area to host the Super Bowl when they host Super Bowl 58 2 years from now in 2024. And of those 15 or 16 areas, depending on how you want to look at it, New Orleans has been arguably the most successful of the bunch. They hosted Super Bowl VI 2 years after hosting Super Bowl IV, have hosted a Super Bowl in every decade, have hosted 10 Super Bowls, and will host their 11th in 2025 when Super Bowl 59 comes to the Superdome, 45 years after they hosted their first Super Bowl. It's crazy to think about how much the history of the NFL changed because of this one performance that seems to be forgotten about. If it wasn't for Al Hirt, there's a very good chance that Miami would have won the rights to host Super Bowl IV, and there's a very good chance that the game would have been exclusively played in Miami, since it was a proven commodity, in the same way that for years, the Pro Bowl was exclusively played in Miami. If it wasn't for Al Hirt, every year would be the road to Miami, and there's a legitimate chance that next Sunday's Super Bowl between the Los Angeles Rams and Cincinnati Bengals would be the 55th straight year that the game would be held down in South Florida. But one trumpet changed the city of New Orleans and changed the entire course of the National Football League forever. Get your official Jaguar Gator 9 merchandise by going to jg9shop.com, and be sure to like this video, ring the notification bell, subscribe down below if you haven't already, as it helps the channel out a lot, and be sure to check out Twitch every Wednesday night at 9 p.m. Eastern for your chance to play NFL Trivia and win cash prizes, link in the description below. If you want to see videos like this condensed down to 60 seconds, then follow me on TikTok at JaguarGator9 and subscribe to 60-Second NFL History on YouTube. To see highlight videos of players throughout the history of the NFL, subscribe to JG9 Highlights. Also, special thanks to all of our Patreon supporters for helping out the channel. Your support is greatly appreciated. See how you can become a patron and request future video topics in the description below.